March 26, 2023. Los Angeles, California. It was supposed to be a normal night. Lucia Rivera, a 34-year-old single mother, had just finished tucking her 9-year-old daughter into bed. The house was still, quiet. On the outside, everything looked safe. But danger had already slipped through the cracks. Somewhere beyond the porch, a man was watching the house. He didn't knock. He didn't break a window. He came in through the back, like he'd done it before. At exactly 10:17 p.m., Lucia's Ring doorbell camera captured a moment she never saw in real time. A man wearing a hoodie stepped into frame for just 3 seconds. His face was turned away. He didn't look at the camera. And then he was gone. Lucia was attacked inside her home, on her own living room floor. Her daughter, asleep in the room next door, never woke up. He didn't speak. He didn't demand money. He just attacked. Lucia fought back. Her screams startled the man. He ran out the same way he came in. By the time police arrived, he had vanished. No footprints. No tire tracks. No usable footage from the doorbell cam, just shadows and motion blur. But then officers noticed something on the living room floor, a navy blue baseball cap. It didn't belong to Lucia. She didn't recognize it. Forensics swabbed the inside for DNA. They sent it to the national database, CODIS. And then, nothing. No match. No name. Just a forgotten cap and a woman too shaken to sleep in her own home. Lucia moved out 2 weeks later. Sometimes crimes like these fade into silence. They don't make headlines. They don't get podcasts. They don't stay on anyone's radar, except the victims. Lucia checked her locks 3 times a night. She kept a bat under her bed. She told her daughter they were just being careful, but inside, she never felt safe again. Weeks turned into months. The police had no leads. Just that one baseball cap sitting in a lab somewhere waiting for a match. But 3,000 miles away on the other side of the country, something else was happening. August 5, 2023. Bel Air, Maryland. Rachel Morin, a 37-year-old mother of 5, laced up her running shoes just after 7 p.m. It was a warm summer night. She kissed her youngest goodbye, told her boyfriend she was heading out, and started her usual jog along the Ma and Pa Heritage Trail. She never came back. By midnight, her boyfriend had reported her missing. By sunrise, police had found her body. Rachel had been dragged into the woods, beaten, sexually assaulted, and murdered. Her body was left in a drainage culvert, just 150 feet off the trail. The community was shaken. This was a small town. A safe place. What happened to Rachel didn't make sense. And worse, it made no noise. There were no witnesses. No camera footage. No suspect sketch. But there was something else. DNA. Traces found on Rachel's body. Traces that didn't belong to her, or anyone she knew. The sample was sent to CODIS. Investigators hoped for a miracle. And then, the system blinked. There was a match. From a different state. From a different crime. From that baseball cap in Los Angeles. It had been nearly 5 months since Lucia was attacked. Her case had been dormant, buried beneath stacks of newer investigations. But suddenly her forgotten file was reopened. The DNA from the hat, once just a cold clue, was now linked to a brutal murder. 2 women. 2 lives. 2 crimes. And one man's DNA in both. But still, no name. No face. No arrest. The man responsible had walked away from both scenes, and was still out there. In 2023 he attacked a mother in her own home. In 2023 he murdered a stranger on a jogging trail. For months he disappeared, no one knew where he went. But in 2024 the FBI made a discovery. A breakthrough that changed everything. Because behind that DNA was a name. And that name had already crossed 3 borders, evaded 3 deportations, and left a trail of pain across 2 nations. The hat he left behind wasn't just an accident. It was a ticking clock. And time had just run out. March 26, 2023. Lucia Hernandez tucked her daughter into bed with a kiss and a bedtime story. Their apartment, nestled on a quiet street in East LA, felt like a pocket of safety. She double-checked the front door, turned off the hallway light, and slipped into the kitchen to rinse her mug. Just a few minutes of peace after a long day. As the tap ran, she heard a faint thud near the back entrance. Her first thought? The family cat knocking something over again. Maybe it was chasing a moth. But when she turned around, the air shifted. The back door, always bolted, was ajar. Barely. But enough to feel it. Before she could process what she was seeing, a figure emerged from the shadows. No warning. No shout. No sound. He lunged. She didn't freeze. Instinct took over. Lucia flailed, kicked, scratched, anything to keep him from reaching her daughter's room. The man shoved her hard. Her ribs hit the edge of the kitchen counter. Pain exploded through her side. She hit the floor. Still she screamed louder. The intruder paused, panicked, then bolted. He vanished into the night, out the same door he entered, leaving behind adrenaline, shattered peace, and a single piece of evidence. A capítulo. Navy blue. Worn at the edges. The responding officers moved quickly. The doorbell cam, mounted above the front door, had recorded motion. They played it back. It lasted seconds. A blurry silhouette slipped across the porch, hoodie pulled low, head turned. No face. Just the outline of someone who didn't belong there. Detectives canvassed the area, knocked on doors, questioned anyone still awake. No leads. Inside, forensics worked methodically. Dusting. Photographing. Collecting. And there it was. The cap. He must have dropped it during the struggle, unaware it had come off. It lay between the couch and the coffee table, almost hidden in the shadows. They bagged it, labeled it, and sent it to the lab. Inside, sweat had soaked into the fabric. Enough skin cells for a full DNA profile. It was uploaded into the national system, CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System. But the screen blinked back the same result investigators feared most. No match. Whoever he was, he'd never been arrested. Not in the U.S. Not on record. For Lucia, the nightmare didn't end when the patrol cars left. She stopped sleeping. She checked the locks 3, sometimes 4 times a night. Her daughter, unaware of the details, asked why mommy jumped at every sound now. Why she kept the lights on. Why she moved her bed into the same room. Lucia told her it was just a phase. That they'd be fine. That nothing would ever happen again. But deep down, she wasn't sure. 2 weeks after the attack, Lucia gave up her lease. She couldn't walk past the kitchen without remembering his shadow. The place no longer felt like home, it felt like a waiting room for the next tragedy. They moved in with her cousin across town. It was cramped, loud, unfamiliar, but it was safer. And that's all that mattered. Meanwhile, the investigation stalled. The detectives filed the report. The DNA was kept in storage. The doorbell footage sat in a digital folder, labeled with the date and time. The cap stayed in evidence. Lucia's case became one of hundreds. There were no updates. No further reports. No arrests. To the system, it was just another unresolved assault. But to Lucia, it was the moment her world broke in half. She no longer trusted shadows. Or silence. Or the kindness of a quiet neighborhood. Sometimes answers come fast. Other times they drift just out of reach. In Lucia's case, the truth sat quietly, hidden in the threads of that cap. Microscopic. Silent. Waiting for the right moment to speak. No one knew it yet. But across the country, another life would soon be shattered. And when it did, that forgotten DNA would rise from the dark. And connect 2 women who had never met. 2 victims whose paths would cross not through friendship or fate, but through the actions of one man. A man who left behind a clue so small, yet powerful enough to eventually tear open everything. Narrator, measured, observant. Bel Air, Maryland wasn't known for violence. Joggers often passed one another with polite nods, earbuds in, minds drifting. It was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked and waved to mail carriers by name. Rachel Morin had made this place her sanctuary. A 37-year-old mother raising 5 children, she carved out small windows of solitude in her hectic schedule. Evening runs became her ritual, her time to think, breathe, unwind. That night at 6:50 p.m. she sent a quick message to her boyfriend. Heading out now. Be back soon. It would be the final thing she ever wrote. She didn't return. Her boyfriend, Colin, waited for 2 hours before calling. No answer. He drove the trail's loop, headlights scanning trees. Her car was still parked near the trailhead, doors locked, windows up. He knew instantly, something was wrong. Police arrived after midnight. Search teams scoured both sides of the path. They brought dogs, flashlights, drones. At 6:37 a.m., a volunteer spotted something off the trail, just beyond a bend where the pavement ended and dirt began. Rachel's body lay partially hidden in a drainage culvert, her clothing torn, her skin bruised. She had been dragged from the path, assaulted, and left like trash. Shock spread through Bel Air like wildfire. Residents once confident in their safety now clutched keys tighter, jogged in pairs, installed cameras overnight. Rachel wasn't careless. She wasn't reckless. She was targeted. And no one saw it coming. Autopsy confirmed the horror, blunt force trauma, sexual assault, defensive wounds. The killer had attacked with brutal precision, vanishing before a single person could witness anything. There were no prints, no phone, no sign of struggle on the main trail. But deep beneath her fingernails, on her body and on discarded clothing, there was something. Biological evidence. A trace the murderer never expected to leave behind. Forensics processed the samples and uploaded the genetic sequence to the national database. And the system pinged, once. A partial match. From an unsolved home invasion, across the country, in Los Angeles. It wasn't a random coincidence. The DNA from Rachel's attacker matched exactly with what had been pulled from a baseball cap left behind in a living room 5 months earlier. 2 victims. 2 states. One invisible thread tying both together. Detectives in LA reopened Lucia Hernandez's case. Maryland investigators flew west. They sat across tables with seasoned LAPD officers, trading notes, timelines, theories. But both departments hit the same wall. No fingerprints. No surveillance. No suspect ID. The DNA, so vivid, so undeniable, belonged to a ghost. Someone never arrested. Never processed. Never even questioned. Months passed. Rachel's children returned to school with grief counselors. Lucia kept sleeping with lights on. The case drew headlines, then vanished beneath newer tragedies. But one person didn't forget. Special Agent Denise Keller, assigned to the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, couldn't let go of the similarities. Both attacks were fast, silent, methodical. Each victim chosen carefully, not at random. She submitted a request, bring in genetic genealogy. A cutting-edge process that didn't search for a person. It searched for a family. In May 2024, analysts at a private lab partnered with federal agents. They uploaded the unknown killer's DNA into a public ancestry database. Not everyone allows it, but some people do. They got a hit. Not the man himself, but his relatives. A cousin in Virginia. A great-aunt in Texas. A second cousin once removed, living under a different name in El Salvador. The threads were thin, but connected. A web began to form, slowly narrowing in. It took weeks of combing through names, locations, immigration records. Then one afternoon in late May, they found it. A young man who had crossed the southern border illegally 4 times. Each time, deported. Each time, returning. He fled his home country after authorities issued a warrant for a violent homicide in December 2022. Witnesses said he stabbed a woman to death. The motive? Still unclear. He fled north, through Guatemala, across the Darien Gap, into Mexico, then eventually Texas. Border Patrol detained him on 3 separate occasions in January and February 2023. He used false names, fake birth dates, but his fingerprints betrayed him each time. He was deported 3 times in 3 different weeks. On February 13th, he entered again. This time, no one stopped him. He made his way to Los Angeles. By March, he was in Lucia's kitchen. By August, he was standing in Rachel's woods. On June 14, 2024, acting on a lead from the genealogy team, FBI agents located Martinez Hernandez working under the table at a bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He didn't resist. He asked only one question. Is this about the girl in California or the one in the woods? Narrator, low and steady. The answer was both. And suddenly, everything began to fall into place. 2 crimes, once separated by miles and months, were now threads in the same twisted rope. The DNA had finally spoken. Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez knew how to disappear. He'd mastered the art of slipping through cracks, legal, physical, and digital. In his home country of El Salvador, he was already considered dangerous. He'd allegedly murdered a young woman during a drunken altercation in Santa Ana, stabbing her repeatedly, then fleeing the scene before sunrise. Police issued a warrant by mid-January 2023, but Victor was already gone. By then he was on foot, moving through the Guatemalan highlands, sleeping in abandoned churches, paying smugglers with stolen cash, crossing borders not by passport, but by instinct. He entered the United States illegally for the first time on January 17, 2023. The journey had taken nearly 3 weeks. He was caught 2 days later in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. Dehydrated. No identification. He claimed to be 17. Border Patrol didn't believe him. He was detained and sent back. On January 31st he tried again. This time through El Paso. Same story. Same result. February 6th, 3rd attempt. Another capture. Another deportation. 3 times in 25 days. Still he didn't stop. On February 13th he crossed again. But this time he changed tactics. No large group. No coyote. Just darkness, patience, and a stretch of fence with a hole only a child could crawl through. He disappeared into Southern California without a trace. Authorities wouldn't realize he had returned, until it was already too late. A month later, Victor entered Lucia Hernandez's life uninvited. Her apartment sat at the edge of a busy intersection, not the kind of place you'd expect a silent break-in. But Victor had watched. Waited. He picked the night her brother usually stayed over, only this time he hadn't. Lucia, exhausted from double shifts at the diner, had barely closed her daughter's door when she heard a creak in the kitchen. She assumed it was their cat, Pancake. It wasn't. What happened next lasted seconds, maybe less. A figure rushed from the hallway, shoved her into the wall, slammed a hand over her mouth. He didn't speak. He didn't threaten. He simply acted. She scratched at his arm. Bit his wrist. He bolted. Left behind was a baseball cap, navy, sweat-stained and ordinary. But inside the sweatband was a sample that would change everything. At the time, police had nothing else. The DNA led nowhere. No match. No ID. So the cap was sealed, logged, and archived. Lucia moved within the week. Victor again vanished. By August he had crossed the country, one coast to the other. No vehicle. No plane ticket. Just stolen rides, freight trains, and the endless roads of America. He found himself in Bel Air, Maryland. A place quieter. Simpler. Easier to blend in. Rachel Morin didn't know him. They'd never spoken. Yet he followed her from the grocery store one evening. Watched her from a parked car across the street. When she jogged alone he knew her pattern. He waited by the bend in the trail. The one with the tall reeds. No lights. No cameras. He struck. And then, nothing. No credit card usage. No cell tower pings. No fingerprints in any system. Victor Martinez Hernandez vanished into the heart of the city. April 4, 2025. A year and a month after the arrest. The courthouse in Bel Air, Maryland, was unusually quiet that morning. Journalists waited behind barriers. Rachel's mother clutched a folded tissue in one hand, a worn photograph in the other. Her oldest grandson held her purse. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with silence. Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez sat at the defense table, expressionless, shoulders hunched forward. He didn't look at anyone. Not even when they read the charges. First-degree murder. Rape. Sexual offense. Kidnapping. Assault. The courtroom was full, but no one moved. Lucia Hernandez had flown in from California the night before. She hadn't wanted to. She didn't want to see his face again. She didn't want to relive the moment he shoved her into her own hallway. But she needed to be there. For closure. For strength. For her daughter. She didn't sit in the front row. She took a seat in the back, near the exit just in case she needed to leave. Her eyes rarely left the man in the defendant's chair. For the first time since the attack, she felt taller than him. Over 10 days, prosecutors built a timeline. They showed the hat. They showed the shoe prints on the Ma and Pa trail. They presented expert testimony linking the DNA from the Los Angeles attack to the material found on Rachel Morin's body. It was science. But it felt like storytelling, only darker. A forensic genealogist walked the jury through how family trees helped trace the suspect. A border agent explained how Victor slipped through checkpoints multiple times. A trauma expert described what it meant to wake up each day afraid to breathe too loudly in your own home. Rachel's 5 children came to court on the second day. The youngest, barely 6, clutched a Spider-Man backpack and a crayon drawing he said he made for his mom. The oldest, a teenager, sat rigid. He refused to cry. He hadn't cried since the vigil. Not in front of strangers. One by one they spoke. Each told the court what it felt like to lose a mother who sang while cooking, who reminded them to floss, who never missed a birthday, even when she couldn't afford cake. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when her daughter read a poem she'd written on Mother's Day. Halfway through, her voice cracked. Victor never spoke during the trial. He sat with his hands folded. When the evidence came forward, he didn't argue. When Rachel's children cried, he didn't shift in his seat. Not even when Lucia stood up and pointed at him from the witness stand, describing his smell, the silence, the panic that still hadn't left her chest. She said she woke up every night at 3:26 a.m., the exact minute her alarm rang when the police arrived that night. She said she checked every lock twice, even the ones on windows they never opened. She said she still slept with her bedroom light on. On April 14, 2025, the jury returned with a decision. It had taken them less than 5 hours. As the judge asked for the verdict, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty. On all counts. Rachel's mother covered her face and wept. Her oldest son finally let go of the tears he'd hidden for almost 2 years. Lucia looked down at her lap, her hands trembling, but this time not from fear. Victor didn't speak. He was let out in handcuffs. He didn't look back. It wasn't victory. No one celebrated. Rachel was still gone. Her youngest would still grow up without bedtime stories or goodbye kisses. Lucia would still pause every time the floor creaked in the middle of the night. But justice had spoken. It didn't bring peace, but it brought truth. And that was something. Victor Martinez Hernandez awaits sentencing on August 11, 2025. He faces life in prison without parole. But even a life behind bars can't reverse the minutes he stole, the final breath Rachel took in that culvert. The cold terror Lucia felt when her door lock clicked shut. The endless ache that blankets 2 families every time a holiday comes around. Justice doesn't erase trauma. It simply carves a boundary between before and after. All of it began with a single forgotten baseball cap. A moment of panic. A dropped piece of fabric. Sweat soaked into a brim, holding a secret no one could see. That thread connected a mother in Los Angeles and a jogger in Maryland. And because of that thread, 2 families, miles apart, finally heard the words they'd been waiting for.